On December 10, 2025, U.S. forces intercepted the oil tanker Skipper off the coast of Venezuela in a dramatic operation that unfolded under the watchful eyes of the world. The interception was the result of weeks of intelligence gathering and surveillance as U.S. officials tracked the vessel's suspicious movements through international waters. Seizing over 1 million barrels of oil that were bound for Cuba, the U.S. Navy executed a swift and coordinated boarding. The cargo, worth tens of millions of dollars, was believed to be part of a covert effort to funnel sanctioned Iranian oil to America's adversaries in the region. The operation specifically targeted Iran's so-called shadow fleet, an armada of vessels with hidden ownership and false paperwork, sending a clear message that the U.S. would actively disrupt Tehran's elaborate sanctions-busting oil trade, no matter how far it reached. The Skipper, flying a false Guyana flag to mask its true identity, had a notorious history of sanctions violations. Previously known as Odessa, the ship had already been sanctioned for aiding Iran's Quds Force, a branch of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps accused of supporting terrorism. At a high-profile press conference, Attorney General Pam Bondi and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem framed the action as a decisive crackdown on rogue regimes. They emphasized the growing threat of shadow fleets being used to secretly fund terrorism and destabilize global security. The White House quickly confirmed that the seized oil would be brought to a U.S. port and confiscated. President Trump, never one to mince words, bluntly stated, "Well, we keep it, I guess," underscoring the administration's hardline stance on sanctions enforcement. This move struck a direct financial blow to Iran, depriving the regime of millions in desperately needed revenue. The loss of such a large shipment sent shockwaves through Iran's already struggling economy, tightening the squeeze of international sanctions. The operation marked a significant escalation in the ongoing U.S. economic pressure campaign, making it clear that Washington was willing to act decisively at sea to enforce its policies and protect its interests. The Skipper's seizure was not just about oil, it was a high-stakes signal in a broader geopolitical contest. The U.S. was flexing its power, warning both allies and adversaries that it would not tolerate violations of its sanctions regime. The U.S. aimed to deter others from aiding Iran's illicit trade, hoping to disrupt the complex web of ships, brokers, and middlemen that keep the shadow fleet afloat. The message was clear: no vessel, no matter how well disguised, was beyond the reach of American enforcement. The message: American sanctions have teeth, and violators will pay a price. The world was watching to see who would challenge the U.S. next, and how far Washington would go to defend its economic red lines. The stage was set for Iran's inevitable response, as tensions simmered and the world braced for the next move in this high-stakes maritime chess game. Iran struck back just 2 days later, seizing a foreign-flagged tanker in the Sea of Oman, a vital artery for global oil. 18 crew members from South Asia were detained, escalating the crisis from cargo to hostages. Iran accused the ship of smuggling 6 million liters of fuel, operating without proper documents, and trying to evade capture. This mirrored a pattern. Whenever the U.S. targets Iranian oil, Iran retaliates by disrupting shipping in its backyard. By targeting non-U.S. vessels, Iran avoids direct war, but sends a warning: if its oil is blocked, no one's oil is safe. This asymmetric tactic keeps the region on edge, raising risks for all maritime trade. The tit-for-tat game was now in full swing. The tanker seizures ignited a fierce war of words between Washington and Tehran. President Trump's team cast the Skipper seizure as law enforcement against a criminal regime, projecting American strength. Trump's offhand "we keep it" comment downplayed risks, but signaled resolve. Iran's supreme leader, Khamenei, warned the era of hit and run was over. Any U.S. action would be met in kind. Tehran's message: Iran won't accept asset confiscation without retaliation, especially in the Persian Gulf. U.S. intelligence warned of ongoing Iranian plots for revenge, including threats against former President Trump. The rhetoric fueled domestic support on both sides and raised the stakes far beyond oil. This was no longer just about tankers, it was personal, political, and dangerous. The risk of escalation was now higher than ever. The tanker drama unfolded as Iran's economy teetered on the brink. The world watched as tensions mounted, with every move on the high seas echoing through the streets of Tehran. For ordinary Iranians, the crisis was not just a headline, it was a daily reality, shaping the price of bread, fuel, and even hope for the future. U.S. sanctions have slashed oil exports, Iran's main revenue source, crippling its ability to fund its military and proxies. Once a major player in the global oil market, Iran now struggles to find buyers, with many countries wary of angering Washington. The loss of oil income has left the government scrambling to cover basic expenses, let alone maintain its influence abroad. The rial plunged 15% in a month, hitting record lows and fueling inflation that eroded ordinary Iranian savings. Families watched their purchasing power vanish almost overnight, as imported goods became unaffordable luxuries, and even local products soared in price. The uncertainty has led to a rush on dollars, with people desperate to protect what little wealth they have left. The government subsidy system for essentials is draining the budget and plagued by corruption, as seen in the Debs tea scandal. While subsidies are meant to shield the poor from hardship, they often end up benefiting the well-connected, fueling public anger. The system is increasingly unsustainable, with officials debating painful reforms that could spark further unrest. Global oil prices are down, and Iran must sell at steep discounts, often storing unsold oil at sea. Tankers linger offshore, symbols of lost revenue and missed opportunities. Each barrel left unsold deepens the crisis, forcing Iran to make tough choices about its future. The regime faces a dilemma: keep subsidies and risk bankruptcy, or cut them and risk unrest. With public patience wearing thin, leaders are caught between economic collapse and the threat of mass protests. The stakes could not be higher. Former CIA analyst Ken Pollack calls Iran's situation pre-revolutionary, with public frustration rising. The sense of crisis is palpable, as more Iranians take to the streets demanding change and accountability from their leaders. The economic crisis makes Tehran more defensive, and more likely to take risks abroad to distract from domestic woes. As pressure mounts at home, the regime may gamble on foreign adventures, hoping to rally support or shift the narrative away from its own failures. Every lost tanker is a blow, but also a trigger for unpredictable retaliation. Each incident at sea risks spiraling into a wider conflict, with consequences that could reach far beyond Iran's borders. The stakes for both sides keep rising, as economic desperation and geopolitical rivalry push Iran and its adversaries ever closer to the brink. The US and Iran's tit-for-tat actions are driven by survival and strategy. For Washington, seizing tankers enforces sanctions, cuts off funds to Iran's military and proxies, and deters others from helping Tehran. Iran, facing economic strangulation, sees oil exports as existential and must retaliate to show it won't be bullied. By threatening the Strait of Hormuz, Iran reminds the world that global commerce is at risk if its oil is blocked. Both sides use these confrontations to rally domestic support and project strength. Iran also seeks new trade routes, deepening ties with neighbors to bypass sanctions. The conflict is fought on many fronts: economic, military, and political. These tanker confrontations are part of a long and complicated US-Iran pattern that has only intensified since the US left the nuclear deal in 2018. Each incident is not just a one-off event, but a chapter in a much larger story of rivalry, suspicion, and power plays in the region. The US has increasingly used civil asset forfeiture to seize and sell Iranian oil shipments, often under the justification of enforcing sanctions. Sometimes, the proceeds from these sales are funneled to victims of state-sponsored terrorism, adding another layer of complexity and controversy to the seizures. Iran, in turn, has a long history of retaliatory seizures and harassment in the Gulf, from the brutal naval skirmishes of the 1980s tanker war to the high-profile 2019 seizure of the British-flagged Stena Impero. Tehran has shown it is willing to respond forcefully to perceived provocations. The script is familiar: US pressure, Iranian retaliation, a sudden spike in tensions, and then uneasy de-escalation. Yet each time, the world watches anxiously, knowing that the cycle could break at any moment and lead to something far more dangerous. But with every new cycle, the risk of miscalculation and unintended escalation grows. Even a minor incident could quickly spiral out of control, drawing in regional and global powers. The June 2025 Israel-Iran clash was a stark reminder of how quickly regional tensions can erupt into open conflict, with consequences that reach far beyond the Gulf itself. Every tanker seized, every ship detained, is a potential flashpoint, an incident that could ignite a much larger crisis and threaten the stability of global energy supplies. The danger is real. One wrong move, one misread signal, could trigger a wider war that no one truly wants, but everyone fears. the stakes are higher than ever, with the world's energy security and regional peace hanging in the balance. The December 2025 tanker seizures mark a dangerous new phase in the US-Iran standoff. For the US, it's maximum pressure. For Iran, it's defiance and leverage. Each side's actions push the other closer to the brink, with no diplomatic off-ramp in sight. Iran's ability to disrupt shipping is real, but it comes at the cost of deeper isolation and economic pain. The regime faces unrest at home and uncertainty over Khamenei's succession. Every escalation normalizes risk, making miscalculation more likely. The conflict now spans oil, politics, and personal threats, far beyond the Gulf's waters. Until the core dispute is resolved, every tanker crossing the Persian Gulf will be a symbol of fragile peace, always one incident away from disaster.